Hey guys, this is another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. We're continuing our conversation about nutrition. We just kind of wrapped up our series on nutrition pillars, and this is a special request from the Power Turtle himself, Mr. 880 deadlift, David. So, if you guys have been following myself, I'm if it is your first time, I'm Coach Gaglione. I'm the owner of Gaglione Strength. I've been involved with powerlifting and strength training and coaching for over 13 years. And more recently, over the past 2 years, I've lost over 100 pounds of body weight and kept it off, and continued to work on becoming strong and lean, and just setting an example for our athletes and our team here at Gaglione Strength. And one of the things that I've been kind of talking about, if you've been following along with our podcast, if not, you can re-listen some of the older episodes. We talked about having a 60-day nutrition challenge where I outlined some of the things that I was working on. And it's just kind of funny because for whatever reason, basically in the past when I was if I did ever fall off, I wasn't really kind of overly fixated on it. And so I kind of made this challenge to myself, and I kind of put the challenge out to you guys as well. I wanted to be strict for 60 days in a row. And so far I've had like streaks of about 10 or 11 or 12 days. And I think, I ended up cheating on my diet twice in the course of about a 30-day period, so about halfway through what should have been halfway through the challenge, but I'm having to start over every time. So a couple of reasons why I'm sharing that with you guys is, number one is I'm not perfect. So even though I'm a coach, even though I've been doing this a long time, I've hit some decent numbers and accolades in powerlifting. I'm not 100% all the time, and most people are not. And if those people are, usually something has to kind of give somewhere else in their life. So this podcast is going to talk about the difference between cheating and treating yourself, and I want to kind of talk about the situations of when it's appropriate to treat yourself and when it's appropriate not to. And also, if you're kind of falling off track and you do cheat on your diet or your plan, like what's the best way to kind of get back on track? So number one, what I would say is, this I learned from Mark Bell, and I think it's really, really important, especially if you're someone who's just starting out. Whether it be working out or nutrition, you're always one meal or one workout from getting back on track. What I've noticed, especially with myself, again, I don't have the best relationship with food. I've used food for comfort. I've used food for a lot of things. I really enjoy, I've used food for comfort. I've used food when I'm depressed or stressed. I tend to make very bad choices depending on what environment I'm in. So I'm kind of aware of those things. And there's still a lot I need to work on, especially moving forward. And I'll kind of talk about like why and when I cheated, and then how I kind of combated those things and how I got back on track. But just realize that you're always one meal or one workout of getting back on track. So what you don't want to do is, if you do cheat and you do fall off track, it's a slippery slope. So there's going to be positive or negative momentum. You really need to get yourself back in check and focus on the next meal or the next workout. Focus on the next one. Don't focus on what happened in the past, because what happened in the past is done and it's gone. It's over with. So that's the first thing. Using myself as an example, typically if I kind of go off, it's usually almost always something with carbohydrate. And it's not to say that carbohydrates are bad or sugar is evil, but in general, the foods that have a lot of sugar tend to be highly palatable. They usually don't have a lot of micronutrients, so they don't really get you full, and you can usually eat a lot of them. So things like, they might have sugar and fat, but in general, they usually have sugar. So I've even noticed, so when I'll talk about the 2 times I cheated recently on my diet and kind of what caused that. So one of the things that I did, and it was a little bit kind of going off my rules anyway, but one of the things that I like to do, and I might have to reconsider this moving forward, I enjoy Quest bars. They're pretty macro friendly. They have a lot of fiber. They don't have a lot of sugar. They're a good source of protein, and there's not too much fat. So when I was traveling to beautiful San Diego for my vacation, I had a lot of Quest bars to kind of hold me over on the planes. It's really easy to travel with. But what I did notice is, they are sweet. They do have some carbs in them. And my buddy Chris Bell says, like, carbs beget carbs, and the carbs will kind of lead to more carbs. And what ended up happening was, and I was planning on treating myself that weekend because it was my vacation, but I wasn't planning on going off my plan when I did. So when I landed in San Diego, I happened to be staying with my family out there, and my aunt made a lovely pan of lasagna. And I was kind of tired from the 6-hour plane ride. I already had a little bit of a sweet tooth because I had the Quest bars, and how could I resist? So I cheated there. That was not something that was planned. And that's kind of the biggest difference between a treat and a cheat, is if you plan to do it or not, and do you have the willpower to say no. So if you're making the conscious decision to say yes, and it's something that's scheduled, then I consider that a treat. So part of me cheating was understanding when you're going to cheat and when you're going to fall off. So Dr. Tom Bilello, Nutrition Treatment Center, he's helped me out a lot in the past. He talks about the acronym HALT. So a lot of times we are going to go off the wagon when we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So when we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, HALT. So it's really important for us to realize these triggers. And I am aware of these triggers, and I still fall off. And he kind of jokes, and he's an Italian guy as well. He's from Jersey, and he's got the accent. He's a little crazy. He's funny. He's a riot as well. But he basically says when HALT, when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, eat 2 hard-boiled eggs, have a liter of water, and then reassess. And oftentimes, if you have some protein, you have a little fat, you have some water, a lot of times those kind of cravings go away. So the moral of the story is, when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, try to find some protein, maybe a little fat, that'll satiate you, and get some water, and usually that'll be kind of good. So I think especially when you're traveling, some of the things I'm probably going to have to do a better job moving forward is, like, as soon as I get off the plane, and I've done this in the past, but I happen to be going to my family, so depending on what environment you're in, so like if you go to a hotel, usually, sometimes at a hotel they might have cookies and stuff, so these are things to be aware of. But in general, if you're kind of going to an Airbnb or a hotel, you're going to have probably no access to food. I was going in to my family's house, and ironically enough, the second time I cheated was at my mom's house, so I'll kind of talk about that. So if you're kind of going into uncharted waters, so to speak, you want to be prepared. So before going into uncharted waters, maybe it's a good idea to kind of prep yourself with food. The other strategy you could do is, obviously, if you're traveling, things you could fast. I just know personally, for me, like when I'm traveling, fasting doesn't really go well, just for whatever reason. It just really kind of messes with my energy levels. So I'd rather try to like stock up on eating some like food with like a lot of fat and protein early on. So maybe try to find maybe some burger patties or some meat or some hard-boiled eggs like at the airport, and try to like load up on that. So that's kind of my advice. So that was the first time I cheated. Now it was also happened to be around my birthday time. Rewinding a little bit, so that weekend was the week after my birthday. The week of my birthday, I actually elected to not treat myself at all, just because I knew I was going on vacation. So when I went out to eat with my family for my birthday, I did my normal kind of thing. When you're going out to eat, I always just order steak and veggies. And I usually, on days where I'm kind of going out, or on days where I'm not training, I try to keep those days a little bit keto, just because in general, when you go out to eat, it's going to be a higher fat anyway. So by kind of eliminating the carbs, it's still going to kind of keep your calories in check. And obviously you can do things like MyFitnessPal and stuff, but I'm just not a big, I do weigh my food and things like that, but I'm not like a big like macro counter, especially when I'm going out. So I usually just take that precaution. If I know I'm going out to eat, I'll usually just order steak and veggies. That way there's no decision-making fatigue. That's always my option, is I'm going to try to find some sort of burger patty or steak. Ask for no bun, ask for no bread. I usually try to like let the waiters know ahead of time. If they bring bread to the table, I just say, politely, no thank you. And sometimes I'll get some weird stares, but that's kind of how I kind of combat those things. I did elect to, this was planned, so this was my treat. I did elect to have one Mexican fiesta. We even had the mariachi band playing. So I had some, some tacos. I had some chips and salsa, which is my favorite. It's definitely a weakness for me. and I even had churros with ice cream. And this is a conversation I've also had with Mark Smelly Bell. We talked about there's Mark Bell. One of Mark Bell's first seminars was with Jesse Burdick with Zach Evanesh in Underground Strength Gym in Edison, New Jersey. It is Zach did close that location, but it was that place was near and dear to my heart. It's one of the reasons why I decided to be a strength coach in the first place, was going through Zach Evanesh's underground strength certification. So thank you, Zach, if you do ever hear this. But we had one of Mark Bell's first seminars. They actually couldn't get a lot of people to sign up. I was one of the only people to sign up. So I remember, Mark and Jesse, they wanted to share the cookie skillet dessert, and me and Zach were kind of busting their chops that the two big powerlifters had to share the dessert. But we did come to the conclusion that something cold on something hot makes a great dessert, hence brownie sundae. And in my case, for my treat meal, I had warm churros with a cold ice cream, and it was worth every calorie. So that was a treat. I didn't feel guilty from it. That was planned. And, the fact that I've lost over 100 pounds and been pretty on point, I think it's okay for me to have a treat meal once in a while. So I want to kind of talk about when it's not appropriate to have a treat meal. So one of the things, let's say I didn't lose 100 pounds, and I would just start, then this was my starting point now. And I'm like, I'm going to be committed for 60 days. I already fell off the wagon twice. Now, the fact that I'm leaner, I have a lower body fat percentage, I have a higher percentage of muscle mass. The consequence of me cheating is a lot less than when I was 340 pounds. And dare I say it, it's really disgusting, 40% body fat, which is really, really bad. I don't know if I still have my, I gotta find that folder somewhere. But, I'll find it.
Print out the old ones too.
Yeah. But, so yeah, it was really bad. It was not good. But anyways, guys, it was not looking good. So I had to be really on point, and I had to be really committed when I was, and you would think the opposite. You would think like, oh, when you're that, like, this is something I actually don't agree with, is like, oh, when you're like that fat, you could just like stop drinking soda. And I think that actually when you're first starting out, you need to be more strict, because it's about habit change. And it creates, anywhere from 30 to 90 days, depending on what research you look at, you need to stick to those habits. You need to stick to those habits for a long time, at least 30 to 90 days for it really to kind of be into a routine. The first couple of weeks is definitely going to be harder. So again, using myself as an example, if I was starting now, I would really need to like kind of reevaluate some stuff. A lot of people think that, if you're trying to lose weight, most people underestimate what they eat by, I think, a huge percentage. I forget what the exact percentage is, but most people underestimate, and same thing if they're trying to gain weight, they usually overestimate what they eat. So I think it's really important when you're starting out, you do some sort of tracking. You can go to like one of these places like a DEXA Fit or things like that to get some like a good basal metabolic rate and see how many calories you're actually burning at rest. Something like an in-body scale can also give you like a rough idea. I'll just kind of grab mine for a second. So basal metabolic rate basically just means that's kind of like your calories burned at rest. So this is not like what you're going to eat. So some of the stuff, I wish I had my DEXA Fit stuff here, but so 2,100 calories is about like what I need just to like be alive. So I shouldn't be, so using that information, I shouldn't probably be eating like, 1,500 calories. That's going to be too little, right? So obviously I'm training hard, I'm moving around, I'm lifting heavy, so I'm going to obviously need more than that. And the more muscle mass you have, the more, the more lean body mass you have, it's going to be a higher basal metabolic rate. So once we kind of know that, it's a good idea just to track, just to get a baseline of how many calories you eat on average. And then you can kind of start to figure out, like, what your baseline is. And at the end of the day, it is a calorie equation to an extent. But I do really believe in micronutrients, and the quality of your food really matters. And if you're trying to lose weight, you're going to have to be in a calorie deficit for a period of time in order to lose weight. My general rule of thumb is that you want to eat as many calories as possible and still lose weight. So I should say lose fat. Something like an in-body is a great way to measure that, and you can measure that over time. So even if there's some inaccuracies there over time, you're going to see the trends. So even if something is inaccurate, it's going to be consistently inaccurate. So however you're going to measure yourself, whether it's calipers or anything else, just try to measure the same way every single time. The scale is okay, but body fat, measuring your waist, things like that, there's better kind of things to do. Better methods to measure your body fat. So it's kind of like the minimum effective dose when training as well. It's a very common theme. We try to carry these themes into nutrition and weightlifting and all these other things. In order to have longevity and you want to take use the minimum effective dose change in order to continue to make progress. I would say, and one thing that I think I have been doing a good job of is every 12 to 16 weeks, I do think if you are on point, like 100%, 90% compliant, then I think that's when you could have your first kind of treat meal and then kind of maybe go off for a little bit. Maybe even go off for like a week. But, within reason, don't go too crazy because you don't want to build bad habits. My point is that even someone like myself, who I consider myself, I feel like I'm getting a better handle on food. But at the end of the day, I still have a long ways to go and I have a lot to work on. And I literally made this like kind of big post and I made this goal. And the second time I cheated again was Mother's Day, and I decided that, and it happened to be another Mexican restaurant, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just have a little bit more carbs, I'll eat a little bit more, and I ended up going to my parents' house before we went to the restaurant, which was a mistake, because there's always good food there, and I ended up having some fruit, and that was fine, and then the fruit ended up into a bagel, and then I ended up putting jam on the bagel, and then that turned into cereal, and it was just like, holy crap, I was like in this like carb days, and the good thing was though, since I stopped myself, and I actually I had fajitas without the tortillas, and I was compliant during that, so I got back on track the next meal, even though it was out. So in hindsight, I could have avoided the cheat, but I did adhere to the diet during when we actually went out to the restaurant. I didn't have the tortilla chips in front of me, which was a huge win for me, but I still technically did cheat on the diet. The bagel was not on the plan. The cereal was not on the plan. So, a lot of people would like not maybe even count that as a cheat, but like then you have to so for right now, since I did cheat already, I'm not going to again deserve a treat meal for a while. I have to be adhering to the diet a lot better. So I would say you have to be honest with yourself with actually how compliant you are. You have to be honest with yourself with actually how you're measuring things. So for me, this is my road to 198, and I know this is going to be the toughest road yet. Getting down to 275 was a challenge. 242 was a little bit harder. 220 was a little harder than that. And I've been kind of sitting in that. I've been kind of fluctuating back and forth between 230 and 240, and it's getting a lot harder. It's not getting any easier. Even though my habits are better and all that stuff, and I still have fat to lose. I'm not as lean as I was in November either. So I just kind of wanted to share some of my struggles and like how I deal with them. I wanted to share with you the difference between cheating and treating yourself. I think it's okay to treat yourself once in a while, but it has to be earned and it has to be deserved. And your behaviors, your behaviors have to match your goals. There's always a holiday, there's always a birthday, there's always something to celebrate. If you're like how I was in the position that I was, sometimes you can't afford to cheat. And you don't deserve, I hate to say it, but you might not deserve a treat meal. You got to be on point for longer. And I know how it is. There's a lot of other people on the internet that have six packs and they've been ripped their whole life, and they talk about, I have struggles, and it's like, no. I get it. I've been 100 pounds heavier than what you're looking at and listening to me right now. I've been 340 pounds. And I've been morbidly obese and have terrible health and sleep apnea and all these things. So I get it. So you deserve it to yourself and your loved ones around you to do the right thing and just do it for yourself. It's not about how you look. It's about how you, and that's a side benefit of it. It's how you feel on the inside, and it's going to allow you to live a longer, healthier, more fulfilling life for yourself and everyone around you. So that's the difference between cheating and treating yourself. I hope that provides some insight for how you can work towards your nutrition and training goals. The same kind of mindset could be applied to training if you're having trouble being consistent with your training. Consistency is going to trump everything. So find ways to be consistent, make the minimum effective dose change over time, and after 12 to 16 weeks, if you feel like you need a little bit of a mental break to allow you to keep pushing forward, that's fine. And if you don't need a break, keep the positive momentum going. Don't let it stop you. And if you know certain environments, like my family's house is a big one, if you know certain environments are going to trigger you, be prepared for that. Prep your meals, figure out a plan ahead of time. If you're going out to eat, I know like some people say, don't stress about it. No. If you are like me, you need to look at the menu beforehand, and you need to make a decision on what you're going to do. And and that's something that, again, that a skinny person, a certain person with six-pack abs may not understand. So prepare yourself, work hard, be consistent, and don't give up. And if you guys have any questions, I am newly certified through Precision Nutrition, so I am offering nutrition consultations as well. We can hop on the phone if you have a question, if you want to call. You can check out the links below. You can also shoot me an email to gaglionestrength@gmail.com. That's GAGLIONE, gaglionestrength@gmail.com. I'm happy to help because, again, I've been there and I'm here for you 100%. So thank you guys for listening. If this podcast helped you, please share it with a friend. Please give us a 5-star review. It helps other people find us. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.